cults, murder, mutants, and a stretch of road that defies gravity. Kirtland, Ohio is a strange place. So I took a road trip to visit this uncanny small town. First stop is Gravity Hill. What is Gravity Hill? Gravity Hill is where you put your car in neutral and your car will appear to roll uphill. Why does this happen? The forces of gravity work different on this stretch of road. So my first stop is to check this phenomenon out.
See how it looks like it's going down the hill? I'm at 37 and it's staying flat. It's not picking up speed and it looks like I'm going down the hill.
Yeah, it really wasn't that cool. But my next stop is the Kirtland Temple. The Kirtland Temple is the first Mormon church built by Joseph Smith himself in 1836. But Mark, you're not Mormon. Why are you going there? Because this place has a dark history. In the late 1980s, Jeffery Lundgren was a minister of the RLDS church. He was an avid hunter, a husband, a father of 4, and Jeffery loved feces, like really loved feces, if you know what I mean, and I think you do. In 1987, after repeatedly getting caught stealing from the Kirtland Temple, Jeffery was dismissed and kicked out of the church. And that's where Jeffery started his own Mormon cult on his farm a few minutes away.
He saw himself as the spiritual leader and they referred to him as their prophet.
Not only was he preaching to his cult about how he was the prophet and his love of poop, but he was also riling them up for a violent takeover of the Kirtland Temple. But my favorite part of what he did to get them all jazzed up for this takeover of the Kirtland Temple was he made his cult members all watch Rambo First Blood. It ain't over till it's over. I didn't start this war, they did. Fucking wackadoodle. Ultimately, it didn't happen because one of the cult members ratted him out to the FBI. So poop-loving Jeffery turns his attention to the Avery family. They're fellow cult members that lived on Jeffrey's farm with him. And one by one, Jeffery killed each member of the Avery family, the youngest being 6 years old. And he buried each member inside his barn. A couple months later, the cult was dissolved and soon enough, Jeffery Lundgren was finally caught. Barn got demolished. Jeffery Lundgren was charged with 5 counts of murder and kidnapping, and he was eventually given the death sentence. And in Ohio, if you're given the death sentence, you're allowed to plead and ask for leniency on your sentence. So for the next 5 hours, Jeffery Lundgren decided to give the most ridiculous Mormon sermon ever, where he spouted off tons of nonsense and even quoted Highlander. Of course he would quote Highlander. On October 24th, Jeffery Lundgren was executed via lethal injection. His final meal was a big bowl of poop. You know what they say, you are what you eat. So when I got to Kirtland, I noticed there was a gas station that sold souvenirs. It was kind of surreal walking the same steps that Joseph Smith walked hundreds of years ago. There was a tour going on, so I got a lot of strange looks of like, why is this random emo kid just taking pictures of our church? I tried to hide, but I stuck up like a sore thumb, or an emo kid in front of a church. The next stop was the New Promise Church. This church has a lot more to the story than what you think. Jeffery Lundgren's barn was torn down, and in that location, the community decided to build a church as a way of forgiving that past. And it was surreal standing in the spot where such horrific actions happened only 35 years ago. But Jeffery Lundgren, you're a piece of shit and you can suck my balls. Next up, I look into the Melonhead urban legend. The story started off sometime in the 1970s. Creatures with abnormally large bulbous heads are known to roam around the woods of Kirtland, Ohio. And legend has it, they're still lurking the woods today. Now there are 2 terrifying stories of how the Melonheads came to be. They both involve a mad scientist named Dr. Crow. Story 1. He had these orphans come to his property. He started doing these experiments on these kids. And one day, these kids got tired of his abuse. They killed Dr. Crow and his wife. They lit his house on fire. They then realized they have nowhere to live. So they decided to lurk the woods. Story 2, the government decided to do horrible experiments on these orphans. And then they just dumped the kids off in Kirtland, Ohio. The government doing experiments on their citizens? They wouldn't do that. The kids showed up at Dr. Crow's house in the middle of the night, so him and his wife decided to take care of them. Dr. Crow then died and his house caught on fire. The kids were alone and just took to the woods. But both stories have a lot of similarities. The mad scientist Dr. Crow, a house caught on fire, orphans getting experimented on, and mutants living in the woods. So mean-spirited locals decided to start calling them melonheads because of the size of their head. And over the years, the nickname just stuck. And since the 1970s, there have been countless sightings of them. And most of them show up at night. So my next stop was the cemetery where it is rumored that Dr. Crow is buried along with several of the kids.
The doctor who experimented on the melon heads, his name was Dr. Crow. And there's like crows flying around.
Gravestones have been here since the 1800s. Probably when Joseph Smith was hanging around building churches. And many of the gravestones have been deteriorated.
I'm not seeing a crow. Oh, there's one right there. But I'm not seeing a crow on a headstone. But some of the headstones washed away or just gone. Like Dr. Crow buried somewhere around here.
I looked through every aisle and every headstone and could not find a Dr. Crow. Which led me to my next stop. Wisner Road, which rumor has it this is the stretch of road where the melonheads are mostly known to be seen. So I'm driving along looking for eyes staring back at me or glowing bulbous head just bopping up and down in the woods. At this point I drive to as far as I can go and I decided to get out of my car and walk through the woods. And walking through the woods was eerily silent. You didn't hear any birds, you didn't hear any bugs. It was quiet. So if I got attacked by these melonheads or some crazy hillbilly out in the woods, I don't think anybody would know. That's how secluded this area was. I'm walking around and getting further and further away from my car and I don't see anything.
So I'm going all up and down Wisner Road. I'm seeing no melonheads. No footprints, nothing. But I have heard that they come out at night. So I'm going to return at night.
Yeah, I've been out here for like a good 3 hours and haven't seen a single thing. So that was my trip to Kirtland, Ohio. It was mysterious, it was unsettling, it felt like I was being watched everywhere I go. And it's been a few days and I still can't shake the feeling that somebody or something is watching me. Wherever I turn, wherever I go, there's eyes upon me watching my every move. And I see you in the viewfinder. I'm ready for you.